Have a team that works hard for you with Molly McGrath, episode 006. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Profit with Law. Today you are in for a treat. We have our very first guest on the show, and her name is Molly McGrath from Hiring and Empowering Solutions. I will give you Molly's official bio, but just stick around after that for my own take on this amazing interview. Since the late 90s, Molly has coached, consulted, and directed presidents and founders of national organizations and over 400 law firms in executive-level leadership, continuous improvement, and team empowerment initiatives to infiltrate new markets, leverage partner ecosystems, and produce profitability. Molly has 20 years specific skill set experience in conversation intelligence, coaching, team development and empowerment, entrepreneur talent acquisition, Kaizen leadership, root cause analysis, revenue mapping, and action-based project management. Molly is a 3 times Amazon bestsellers published author. Now, I heard Molly interviewed on another podcast, and I said, I have to have her on my show. Molly is just a breath of fresh air when it comes to team building and team development in your firm. And I specifically focused with my conversation with her on firms that are just exiting out of solo, people who are just bringing on their first hires. And can you do the things that she talks about, which sometimes seem like steps that we might not feel like we have time to take because we're so strapped for time, because we're bringing on our first hires because we desperately need them and we waited too long to bring them on. And Molly does a really good job of explaining why it's so important to hire the right people and bring them on the right way and create systems beforehand of exactly how you're going to develop them into a team player. And she even has some really good insights on how to incentivize your staff in a way that you might not have really thought of. And I really love her spin on this. Can't wait to share this episode with you. So without further ado, here it is, Molly McGrath. Molly, how are you today?
I am well. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Molly, it is a pleasure having you on the show, and we had a chance to connect offline before this scheduled interview, and you have a very interesting background, and I would love it if you could take just a few minutes to share with our listeners what is your backstory and what do you do now and how'd you get there? So if you can just fill us in on some blanks so that we know who we're talking to.
Absolutely. So yes, my name is Molly McGrath and I am with Hiring and Empowering Solutions. And a little bit about my backstory. Back in 1997, my partner Lainey Lyons and I would be speaking at national legal conferences, by and large in the estate planning and elder law space, and really speaking about team empowerment, when empowerment really wasn't even a street term, and just talking about how to get your employees to step up and lead and become what we call entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world, where, as you all know, employees can't own a law firm if they're not a licensed attorney, but they can own it with their heart and soul and sweat equity and real ownership of the firm, of protecting the attorney's back and protecting the firm while they're out generating opportunities and revenue, et cetera. And we would be speaking on stage just for a national organization that we worked for, and come off stage and people would be clobbering us in the hallway saying, how can I clone you? How can I get my employee to act and behave and think exactly like you all do? And Lainey and I started really paying attention to this after speaking at several conferences, and decided to really take this very seriously. And we published our first book to really teach employees how to step up and lead, and what it means to work for a small solo boutique law firm, and all the things that are coming at the entrepreneurs and the business owners. And whether you're the receptionist or you're the associate attorney, how to really get into that perspective and take ownership of your role. So we started our book, and then from there began our business, Hiring and Empowering Solutions, back in 2008, and really have been transforming law firms since.
Okay, so what exactly does Hiring and Empowering Solutions do?
So we have two sides of our business, where we have a team empowerment academy, where many attorneys will put their support team through our academy to teach them how to act, behave, think, and operate like an entrepreneur in an entrepreneur's world. So really like a CEO, what mindset, whether you're the receptionist or, like I said, the associate attorney. And the second part of our practice is that we do staffing. So we do hiring for law firms across the country, whether it be from the front lines or the backstage production, and we support them with all of their staffing needs from soup to nuts.
Wow, this is very interesting, and it's a much needed service in the legal community. I know that as law firms are starting to grow, one of their key pain points is finding good talent. And I think that part of the issue when they're looking is that they might be looking for the wrong things when they're looking for talent. And I'd love to get your take on this. So I am a firm believer that you should hire for personality, motivation, somebody willing to get behind your core values and your firm's message, as opposed to hiring for skills, because skills can always be taught, but the motivation and the ability to rise above what you would expect from a typical employee, and somebody really being behind your organization, is not something that can be taught. It's something that comes from the heart, and something that motivates people from from a different place than the motivation of money and a job. And what's your take on that, and how do people find the right balance between those two?
I love that question. So we come from the exact same mindset. You can always teach skills. You can always teach knowledge. It's the human stuff that's next to impossible, unless you're a full-time psychologist or coach, to be able to teach your employees. So we always hire from emotional intelligence, from mindset, from their core values, first and foremost, when we go through our interviewing process. And it's pretty extensive as well. And many times we'll send resumes over to attorneys. They'll say, why in the world are you sending me this candidate? And we say, trust us. Just get in the room with them and talk to them. And 9 out of 10 times they're saying, absolutely, this is a lifer. Because as you all know, it is so expensive and just painful to hire, to find, to onboard, to train people. And we get phone calls all day, every day about, I put all this time, energy, and effort into this employee, and they didn't show up, or they just walked out, or they just gave their notice. And it's really deflating to go back in the arena, so to speak, and have faith that this is not going to be consistent and constant. And I could promise you it's not. When you hire from the human side of things and you find people, nothing makes our hearts happier than to see people that have been with our law firms for 10, 12 years and really invested in it and helping the entrepreneur and the attorney with growing the business.
Yeah, and there's so many different directions I can go from what you just said, but I'm going to bring just an actual case up. So one of my coaching clients, we were talking about them onboarding a new staff member, and I said something to her, and I basically said, not everybody is motivated by money. As a matter of fact, money, it motivates to a certain extent, but there's a lot more that motivates people more than money. And if you can define what the clear mission of your firm is and find people who are passionate about that mission, and care about that mission, then the money is a non-issue. In other words, you don't have to pay them a lot to get them started, and then you can reward them based on the growth of your firm, and you can, the money will come with the results, but it's not like people think that they have to hire somebody who's got the right skill set, which means, so let's say you're bringing on a paralegal, and paralegals cost 60,000 a year. But if you can't afford 60,000 a year, but you need a paralegal, what do you do? And I think that if you approach it from this perspective of not, I need somebody with the skill set, but I need somebody who's passionate. I mean, your background is estate planning and elder law is what you were talking on stage from. So let's use that as an example. If you're passionate about helping people with maintaining their legacy and allowing people to live their life to the fullest in their later years, and you hire people who are passionate about that for whatever reason. There could be something, some grandmother or grandfather's experience that's motivating them, or it could just be that they care about the elderly because that's what their heart calls them to do. But they will be attracted to the message of your firm, and they won't care. I mean, they need to feed their family, and they need
Sure.
to bring home a paycheck, but they won't necessarily care that somebody else can pay them $5,000 or $10,000 more because they're interested in helping you with your mission. And as long as they believe that there's potential for them long term in your firm, they should be a great fit and a great hire. So what do you think about that whole conversation, and how does a solo attorney who's trying to grow their practice beyond themselves and is now hiring their first staff members, how do they navigate that and approach that entire conversation? And which came first? Is it the chicken or the egg? Is it more important to really define what the law firm is about and try to find the talent that can get behind that, or is it more important to just find somebody who can do the work and just do it?
Yes, 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 to it all. So it's really, I would say a three-pronged approach, if you will. First and foremost, it doesn't have to be about the money, but what we find is that attorneys don't talk about the money because they're so angst about it. They're afraid, so they go through the entire hiring process. They fall in love with someone. They think they're going to be great. And then they find out that, they have a budget of $12 an hour and this person wants $30 an hour, and then they're crushed. And so what we say is figure out first, it's one of the first questions we ask candidates, is number one, what do you need to put food on your table and gas in your tank, not to harm yourself or your family? Like, what's your bottom line dollar of what you need? So we know if we're at least in the arena or the ballpark. And what I love is many times we'll say, okay, well, you're a little bit out of budget. It's a small law firm. You're their very first employee. They don't have the opportunity to pay you that. And the next question inherently, if they're a superstar candidate, is, well, whoa, 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 tell me a little bit more about the firm. I want to hear about it, because I've been in this big firm where they give me no time, no attention, no opportunity, do not share the vision, nothing. And right now I'm at a crossroads where it's not about the money. So when you can get that ideal scenario, we just had that in Montana on Friday for an estate planning law firm, satellite office. It's their fifth office they're opening, and one attorney and one support staff in there. And the candidate, to your point of it connected to the vision of, I'll use estate planning as the example, she wanted $25 an hour. Well, after meeting with the attorney, hearing the vision, hearing how they run their practice, hearing all of that, she was sold. She was absolutely sold. And it is a sales process. It's not about hiring or staffing. At the end of the day, you're trying to enroll people into your mission and that you have a place of autonomy for them. So after that, she ended up taking like a $12 an hour pay cut. And the core of that was her personal story. She lost her mother at a very young age, and to the point where she was driven to tears with the attorney in the interview, hearing what she does and what the attorney does for the families through the postmortem and the probate and the trust admin process. And so it's very important to, number one, just make sure you're on the same page. And if you're not, there's always room for enrollment and negotiation, as long as your vision and your passion and your service and your core values are in alignment. But the third piece I would say, which is almost equally as important as pay and enrolling people into your vision and being passionate about what you do as a business model, is also the structure that you have in place for consistent communication and feedback. I just wrote a blog about this. It's not about the paycheck. People will take a pay cut every single day. If they know that they're going to get communication, they're going to get feedback, and they're going to get time and attention. They're human beings. This is a relationship. And so many firms, we'll get calls from people, and when we're interviewing candidates, they're like, we don't have any staff meetings. We have absolutely no idea what the vision mission is. We just come in every day. It's like Groundhog Day. And we're just in here, just come in, do your job, go collect your paycheck and go home. And in this day and age, especially with social media, just breathing so much opportunity and such a coaching mindset into every industry, people are like, there's got to be something more. I don't want to come here and leave my family and miss my kid's soccer game and stay late if I'm not anchored to a bigger mission and value. So I tell attorneys all the time, you can hire somebody and then you can have the best business model in the world. But if you are not in consistent communication, weekly staff meetings that we call like board of directors, where you're always re-anchoring and realigning into the mission, where you're talking about your top goals for the week, where people have a North Star that they can anchor into, that you're doing quarterly and monthly in the beginning when you hire a new person, where you're doing growth reviews with them and giving them constant feedback, communication, acknowledgement, that will go, your people will never leave you if you create a culture and environment such as that.
Wow. So many things that you just said that I want to come back and touch on. So I hope that I remember them all. But I want to first point out that in episode 3 of this podcast, we talked about the 10X, our 10X model. So we have a firm differentiator 10X system that we use to help attorneys grow their practice from solo to $1 million. That's the path that we take for them. And that system is made up of 3 pillars, and the middle pillar is the system. And you have to have your processes documented. You have to have a system in place so that you can plug somebody into that system and just give them the go-to list that everybody's doing the same thing. And this way your client is getting the same result. And I love how you've now broaden that into, you need to have a system of how you deal with your employees. You need to have a system of how often you meet with them. When do they get their encouragement? When do they get their feedback? And this also goes into the other pillars. So the first pillar is the differentiator. And we teach that you need to differentiate your firm from other firms. And you can look at that from the client side, but you can also look at that from the employee side. And by creating a vision and a mission that you can get behind, and then you can use that as your marketing tool to find your staff, it makes it that much more powerful. And then the final leg of it, the transformation, which is all about your mindset. And this is something that I think is the hardest piece of the puzzle, and you probably would agree, and that is for the law firm owner to change the way that they think about what their employees are in their firm. You know, they're not just people here to do the job you don't want to do or to help you do the job that you want to do. They're the people that are going to be your militia to achieve this mission. You're your foot soldiers.
Absolutely.
And you need to be able to pull them in a room and rah, 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 get them, prepared for battle. That's what I hear from you is basically, you have to have this complete package, which is very hard for somebody who's just hiring their first staff member to really, first of all, to put into place effectively from day one, but also to really just get it right. And I think that if you put yourself in their shoes and just think of yourself as, if I was the employee, what would I want? What kind of feedback would I want? Like, I mean, I'm guilty of this. I don't give kudos to my staff often enough. And sometimes my wife and I share an office, and sometimes she'll turn to me and she'll be like, when was the last time that you told her she's doing a good job? And I was like, I don't know, last time she asked me, So, and then the next time I get on the phone, I'll be like, by the way, this project you just completed, you did an amazing job on it, and it was really good, and and then she'll end up telling my wife how awesome it felt, and that I don't know if it's a guy thing or if it's just getting into the mode, but we need to schedule that feedback into what we do.
Yeah, and we even actually put that we help the attorneys and create safety nets all over the place so you don't have to remember that. And in our team meeting, we call it a weekly stakeholders meeting because they are stakeholders. They're the director of first impression. The people that are answering your phone, if they're not doing their job, your job's irrelevant because you have nobody to meet with in the conference room or on initial meeting or what have you. So we actually put that starting each meeting with wins. What's the greatest thing that happened to you personally and professionally? So you can at least feel connected to your employees, and then every person has to do a thank you. Who do you want to thank this week and for what? And it's so simplistic, and it takes about 9 minutes of opening up your meeting. And if you have virtual employees, you could do it Zoom, very much like this. But there's safety nets that we put in our agenda just to gently remind everybody in the firm of, because it's the same thing for the entrepreneur. We tell the team members they're getting their butt kicked all day, every day, from clients, from referral sources, from their spouse for not getting home because they're working so hard, and they need to get that just as much as the employees.
Absolutely. And one of my coaches does something in his business that I've recently implemented in mine, and I think that it would translate well here as well. And that is that defining specific metrics that are indicators of progress. So not just dollar amounts, but so for example, we just launched this podcast, Profit with Law. The number of downloads that this podcast has is a direct reflection of our success and the purpose of it, which is our message reaching more and more people. So we have a goal of how many downloads we want, and that goal gets chunked down into a weekly goal. So now I have somebody on my staff, and it's her job to track that information and now come to the meeting and report on what the number is. And it's her job to come up with ideas of how to get that number to be where we want it to be. So she has ownership of it. And I don't really have to do anything other than here in that meeting. This is where we're at, and are we on target with it or not? And I think that empowering your staff to own the responsibility of that metric that they are capable of owning it'll make them do things that they wouldn't do otherwise, to think outside the box and to recommend and implement strategies that you might not have thought of yourself, because now they're responsible for that metric, and it makes them feel successful or unsuccessful when they're able to impact that number.
Oh yeah, I have goosebumps when you were just talking because that's exactly what we teach is every person has their weekly key performance indicators or scorecard, if you will, whether you're the receptionist and it's your job to have callbacks and follow-up calls for initial contacts that came in and said, oh, let me talk to my husband, let me think about it. There's so much lost money. I mean, we've tracked it over again and see people bring in $15,000 in 30 days just by hiring a receptionist to do the follow-up. So every single person has their North Star. They have their key performance indicators, and it's so fun and exciting when you do have that weekly forum where you do have that dedicated time where everybody knows they're showing up with some kind of dashboard. They're reporting on what worked, what didn't work, what their success was, where they're doing on their numbers. And there's no greater satisfaction for your team members to show up and say, I crushed it. And they're so excited to say where they've met it. And it's fascinating when you start tracking and measuring, not from a place of micromanagement, but from a place of empowerment and a place of enrollment. When you start giving people, okay, here are the rules, here's the standards, here's what you're up against, here's your goals for the week, and they start bringing tracking and reporting. I always say, do not have a conversation about it. There always needs to be a report to communicate it. And it's so refreshing to see people show up so excited to say, I made 15 follow-up calls. That was my goal for this week. And I scheduled 3 initial contact appointments. It's so great for a business owner, for an attorney, for an entrepreneur to hear that as well.
Right. And I think it's also important to acknowledge them when they give you that feedback. So you have to recognize that this is something that they are proud of and they're excited about. And I mean, I have this all the time here in my household, where, a child will come home and, share with me a grade that they got, or, a project that they just did. And if my level of excitement isn't appropriate, I mean, they are totally dejected and
Yes.
wondering where they went wrong. And you as a firm owner, your employees are the same way. I mean, as humans, we crave that feedback and that recognition, and that is your cheapest and best currency.
Mm,
It's not the
mm,
paycheck, right? It's
no.
that feedback that you can provide when somebody is hitting those numbers and they're reporting back and they're excited about it, for you to show them that excitement. And you could even take it to the next level, and have some sort of like secret reward system that you just throw a party for somebody who's been consistently hitting numbers for a while, or give out some random Amazon gift cards, or there's different things that you can do, or just an employee of the month or employee of the week, or that kind of thing. There
Mm.
are things that you can do to make that recognition even firmer by adding some more oomph to it, by making it more exciting. And that brings more fun to the workplace too, and it motivates other people as they see someone getting that recognition, and it makes them want to be recognized as well.
Yeah, and we have many, many blogs on this, and it's written about in our book. Don't take the struggle off of you as a business owner. You don't even have to create it and have to remember to go get a Starbucks gift card, or oh, I forgot to acknowledge so and so. We always say hunker down in the beginning as a team, have a strategic retreat, and come up with the incentive compensation package as a whole for everyone, and let them discern and decide and tell you what would be, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs we believe that it's money that employees want, but in our experience it's time, because they're busy, they're parents, they aren't spending enough time with their kids. You might not have a very robust PTO. Most small practices do not. So a lot of times they'll come up with something, hey, if we crush X, Y, and Z, we get to close the office at 2 o'clock on Fridays for the summer from Memorial Day until Labor Day. Great. And there's not, I mean, it's not a direct check that you are writing, but again, you're also making certain that the goal is big enough for you to be able to afford to close the office. So I always say you have the team come up with the bonus plan, the incentive plan, and a lot of times they'll shock you, because the number that we always have in our head as entrepreneurs, they always lowball it. And that's not from a place of manipulation or what have you, but they're just so invested in being involved and honored to be involved in the mission, the vision, and the values of your practice, that for them something as simplistic as time off, it goes miles.
Right. And I've heard you actually say this on another podcast interview, which is how I found you. And I love that you circled back to it, because I forgot that I wanted to make sure that you that you express this exact point. So totally a breath of fresh air, a new perspective of how to look at it. Take your employees and let them define it. So many firm owners think that they need to create some sort of profit sharing plan in order to create that incentive. And I mean, you've articulated it really well, that's just probably not what they're looking for. I mean, ultimately, money is nice, and people appreciate money, and you can always give a bonus above and beyond what they're expecting, and that makes it even more valuable. So having another incentive that is more meaningful to them is probably the better way to go, because it'll be less expensive for you, and it'll be more meaningful to them. So it's really, I don't like the word win-win, but it's exactly what it is. It's a win-win situation for both of you. And it also further stimulates itself. So, I mean, you said that when you give them, Friday off from, you close the office at 2 o'clock on Friday from Memorial Day through Labor Day, that it's not costing you directly. But you're thinking on the other side of this, whoever's listening to this, you're thinking, yeah, but I'm paying them for that time. But the reality is that they are becoming so much more efficient in their work
Mm,
because they are motivated to hit these goals, that you've already achieved all of the value that you needed to get from them. Who said that the value of an employee is in a 40-hour work week?
right.
The value of an employee is in the production of what it is that you need from them. And if they can produce it in 30 hours, there's no reason for them to work 40 hours. As a matter of fact, there are studies that prove that people are less productive and less effective once they exceed a certain number of hours. And the most recent study that I heard was 26 hours. Can you imagine? A 26-hour work week is our most productive work week that we can perform in. So when you hire somebody at 40 hours a week, you're automatically signing them up for 14 hours of lost productivity or decreased productivity. So it's in your best interest to make sure that those 26 hours are the most productive possible, and then you find ways to give them incentives that are going to give them some of that time back so that they're not feeling like they're working as so hard, because they're thinking of the quantity of time that they're committed there.
I love that, especially in a small practice. You might only have one employee and they are the paralegal, the legal assistant, the receptionist, what have you. So we've done so much training on the correlation between time and money. And, time management, you can't manage time, but you definitely can manage your focus. You can manage your discipline. You can manage your intentionality. So even if somebody's wearing four different hats and they have a 40-hour work week, what have you, to your point, exactly 30 hours of that is highly, highly productive. We have them on a very tight, rigid schedule where from the second they walk into the office to the time that they leave, they do time chunking. They know what their top three most revenue producing activities are, whether you're the receptionist or the attorney in the conference room. And those are the first big rocks that go in. And then you have your production time. And then you also make certain that you have your growth time. So even people that are closing their firms at 2 o'clock on Friday, they not only are having their money and revenue generating time, their production time to get all the work out, they're also having weekly growth time as a firm where they're always working on their future opportunities. That's a must. That's typically what people say, oh, we're too busy. I'm not going to work on that. We don't have time for that. We'll do a retreat next quarter at the end of the year, what have you. No, you have to have that intentional time. So you're exactly right. It's all about being able to manage your distractions and your discipline and being very much in a proactive manner and owning your day. We have a whole methodology on how to run your day and how to own your day and to discipline your distractions.
Wow. So it sounds like you've got the system A to Z already prepared for,
Yeah.
for everybody in order to run their firm. How do you, so you keep referencing back to what you do in your business. How does that translate into a client? Like, I know that you place employees, but how do you transfer that system that you keep describing and going back to into their firm? How do you transplant it into their firm?
Yeah, I love that question. So many recruiters do the placement and then they have like a 60-day guarantee or whatever it might be. We realized really early on when we started doing placement in 2008 that you can hire the best superstar. And as I said, you got to give them the time, the attention, the roadmap, etc. And then we would get calls from the attorney saying, oh, so-and-so didn't walk out. They didn't show up today. They just quit, whatever it might be. Or I had to let them go. They're making so many mistakes. And we found out they didn't have that structure in place. So part of our hiring process is we insist that the law firms go through a 90-day onboarding plan with us. So from day one, when they come into the office, we have them do hiring assessments to measure their how they problem solve when they're backed against the wall, some personality tests. We start with that, and then we set 30-day goals. And we facilitate the conversation. We're very clear and concise on when you are sitting here 30 days from now, what would make you absolutely delighted of bringing on this investment, taking this risk of hiring this new employee? They will be taking over the following from you and off your plate. And then we get back on the phone. We have a complete employee growth plan assessment where the employee does a self-evaluation. Then the attorney evaluates the employee. They scan it and send it to us. And then we get on another Zoom and we facilitate their 30-day. We do it again at 60 days. We do it again at 90 days. And through that, they're also going through our team empowerment program where they're learning how to become a CEO, regardless of their role, their title, what have you. But they have CEO mindset and they're able to get into the perspective of the attorney and really learn how to protect their attorney's time, back, energy, calendar, all that. So we handhold them through that process. And it might sound like a lot, but for us, we find that it's very, very successful if the of keeping long-term employees, but also to hold the attorney's feet to the fire to really start to learn how to give up control, because we can appreciate that as entrepreneurs, especially when you own a law firm. There are so many, malpractice and so many other things tied into that. When you're in the personal service industry and you spend so much time, energy, and effort building your relationship, building your brand, and by and large, most of your business does come from referrals, it's very scary to allow for you not to return a phone call to a client, for you not to be the first point of contact. And so we teach both the entrepreneur as well as the team member how to get on the same bridge, and for the entrepreneur to give up what we call controlled growth. Just it's not like you're just giving everything up, but there's a methodology and they have complete confidence that it'll be done up to their standards.
Wow. Once again, you've covered so many things, and there's so many directions we can go. But one thing that stuck out to me is when with this whole process from the attorney's side of it, what kind of time commitment is required from them in order to have this process go smoothly over the first 90 days of that new hire? How much time are they committing to, not just with the reviews of the employee that you guys do together, but also the training that you're doing for them? So, what if they were to use your service, and it doesn't have to be your service, but this should give them
Sure.
some idea
Mhm.
of what's required to start absorbing that knowledge and learning how to be an employer and how to be a motivator and how to be a leader. Really, it's all about leadership. That's what you're training them to do. So whether it's from coming from you or they're learning it on their own, what kind of time commitment should they expect to give for this to be successful?
Love that question. I always tell the attorneys at a minimum, you have to, when you're bringing on a brand new employee, so today is day one, it's their first day. You obviously, if you are a solo practitioner and you have nobody else in the firm and it's all dependent on you to teach them, it's a little different than if you're able to delegate the actual training of the skills and the knowledge of what they have to do. But I tell them at a minimum, you need to have an hour. We ideally recommend that you do it Monday mornings, an hour for your weekly stakeholder meetings to kind of set up your day, set up your week, teach them how to run your calendar, etc. And then if you are responsible for training them on the how-tos, and you could chunk it out, and we do have a 90-day training plan that we suggest, I recommend at least give them an hour a day for at a minimum for the first week. You'll be amazed if you're intentional. Now, again, we teach the employees too. You and I could take an hour, and the same two other people could take an hour. It's about how intentional and how much you are facilitating it. It can't be a coffee clutch where you're just rambling and talking. So we teach the employees how to facilitate and get their needs and chunk out what they're doing. If they're starting out with the phones, great. Just talk about why clients call us, why they write us a check. And if you have no systems in place, have them take the time to document it, bring it back to you the next day. Okay, here's how we handle an initial phone call. Here's how we handle the mail. Here's how we handle the scanning, and have them document it along the way. So I say in the beginning, plan on about an hour of day. Just shift your mindset that, oh, I got to train this employee, to versus have an adult conversation and you are treating them like a CEO. So you treat it like a board of directors meeting and go into it with that mindset and that intentionality, versus you having to train them how to scan a document. No, you're giving them high level direction, because again, if you hire the right mindset, leadership, all that, then they're self-governing. You don't have to handhold them. Micromanagement doesn't even exist. It's no longer, I can't even stand that term, management. We don't use it. It's leadership if you hire right. And then eventually you have your hour a week stakeholders meeting with them. And then in the beginning, for the first 30 days, they say plan on 20, 30-minute end of the day or beginning of the day huddle. What are your top threes? Where are you stuck? Where are you jammed up? Where do you need additional direction? These were my top priorities I needed you to do. Here they are. Ideally, the new employee is delivering them to you in a very methodical manner and say, here, here, here. And we always teach our employees and our new hires, your job is always to show up with an agenda. It's up to you, run it and facilitate it. The attorney's job is just to come and to give you coaching and leadership. And you'll better be coming to them with proposed solutions versus constant problems.
Right, right. I love that. And there's a few things that you said. First of all, I love the term coffee clutch. I'm going to so use that. And the last thing that you said really hits home because I mean, in my previous career in IT, I directed and managed at certain points dozens of IT professionals, and it was, I mean, there were some employees who came and they not only presented what the problem was, but they presented all the solutions that they could think of and which one they thought was the best. And then there were some employees that would come and just be like, throw the bag at you, like,
yes.
we have this problem with this client, and
what should I do?
You need to deal with it, right? Like,
yes.
Not even what should I do? Like, which one of the staff members, which one of the other IT guys are we gonna dump this on? And those people are so easy to pick out once you have them. I love that you say that you're coaching these employees to be coming with the solutions to the conversation. And that's really the key to being valuable as an employee. So if you're listening to this and you're an employee of a firm or you're looking to get hired in a new position, keep that in mind, because that will create innate value in exactly what you do. And just for any of you who want to access any of the resources that we've mentioned throughout this episode, the show notes can be found at profitwithlaw.com/006. Profitwithlaw.com/006. Now, I just want to go back and cover one thing, and that is there's a tool that I use, and it's called Loom. Useloom.us, I think, is the URL, but check the show notes. We'll put the link there. And basically what it is it's a screen capture program. So instead of needing to dictate instructions in a meeting, so when you want to tell somebody a specific skill that that you want them to learn, what you can do is you can record your audio and you can screen share, so you can demonstrate what they need to do. And now that recording is there for anybody. So what we do here internally is, as we create processes, we also create a video for every single thing. So the first time we did it, I was doing the videos, and now that video is documented in the process. So any new person who's getting that assignment now has that video to go back to, and I never need to teach that again. Even the person who I taught it to doesn't have to come back and say, I forgot how to do X, Y, and Z because, you were telling it to me and we were sitting in a meeting and now I don't remember what the steps are. So now you can go back and watch that. So that's a great tool that you can use. Doesn't have to be that tool, but there are technological tools out there that allow you to create this database of recorded videos that your employees can refer back to, and you can use for future employees as you onboard them. So I thought that might be a good thing of value to add in.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about that is we always use the Colby assessment, super inexpensive, I think $49, something in that nature. When you are doing your hiring process, and even if you're not hiring and you do have a team, I would highly recommend you go back and use that assessment, have everyone take it. It takes about 25 minutes to take it because it does tell you how your employees like to receive as well as give information. So to your point, some people need to have a lot of data. They need to have citation along with those training videos. Other people, they'll tell you based on their assessment, like myself, if you give me a manual, I'm not going to read it. But if you give me a 10-minute video, I'll get it in 5 seconds. But I won't read anything like that manual. That's just not how I learn. So I can't say enough about really testing your employees, their assessment, because at the end of the day, to understand how they like to be communicated to and how they typically give information as well. And then you can facilitate it. What I love about that assessment is I always teach everyone, figure out how each one of you learn, how you make decisions, how you solution, how you give information, how you receive information. Then it's up to you to manage. So my high fact finders that need a lot of data, citations, manuals, step-by-step instruction, I'll tell them when I'm communicating with them, listen, don't go back to kindergarten. Don't give me the history. My mind can't handle that. Give me the bottom line. That's how I like to receive information. So I just, as you said, that it kind of triggered that for me is do as much as possible you can to really figure out how your employees are hardwired and let them know how you're hardwired, how you like to receive information. So when you do have that limited time together, it is on point. It is bottom line, and each person is communicating in the way that will resonate with them in a way that they can embody it and take action.
Right. And I love that you bring up that point because people learn different ways. People learn visually, they learn through auditory, and some people learn through reading. So another tool that could be useful if you are doing this video strategy is something called rev.com, rev.com, and it's a transcription service. And basically you take your recorded audio and you send it up to rev.com, and within a certain number of hours, I think it's 4 hours, they turn around and they give you the entire recording transcribed. And it's a minimal fee. It's really affordable. There's no work involved. Basically you do the recording and then have somebody else on staff send it to rev.com, bring it back, just proof it, make sure that it looks good, fix some punctuation, put in some headings, and now you've got the written instructions too. So it's just another way of creating those instructions for the people who need to read through it as opposed to watch a video or listen to the audio.
Great. Love that. Agreed.
All right. So you mentioned that you've written a book. Does the book go through basically everything that we've discussed on this interview? Like, does it go through this whole process? And can somebody read that book to try to start to wrap their head around all the different roles that, that they need to suddenly incorporate into their practice with the hire of their first hire or their future hires or the people who are already working for them?
Yes, absolutely. This is our book, our first book that we wrote, Don't Be a Yes Chick. And it's how to stop babysitting your boss, transform your job, and work with a dream team without losing your sanity and spirit in the process. And the reason that we wrote it, the title, that's a little tongue in cheek, but it was more so for the employees, because what we found is, and we were the recipients, is this as well. Our attorneys would go to legal conferences all the time and bring back all these business books to quote unquote fix us. And the employees would not read them. And it was really funny because one of the law firms that we worked with, they did like a charity drive over the holidays, et cetera, and brought all the donations, cleaned out their clothing, et cetera. And it was unbelievable because all of the employees came with a box of the exact same business books that their attorneys had given them over the years that were not even opened, were not even read. And so Lainey and I worked really hard. We had many, many focus groups with employees as well as the attorneys. When we came up with the name of it, it was fun, it was light to get them to open the book. So all 12 chapters of them, we call it a training manual. We wrote it from that perspective, from anything from hiring to firing to employee reviews, to facilitating and running those weekly stakeholder meetings, to project management, to strategic planning, soup to nuts of everything that you need in order to run a small, solo, medium-sized firm. And it's written in two regards. And we have many, many team members that'll call us and they have it dog-eared and it's sitting on their desk and they're using it as a manual. It's written in regards to give to your employees and go along with our team empowerment program to train them how to act and operate like a CEO of your law firm. But it's also written for the solo practitioners that maybe aren't in a position right now to hire anyone. They don't have the budget or the capacity to bring on staff, and they're operating as a true solo. And you can also go to the book and start to build the systems and to self-manage yourself and be self-governing in regards to whether you're doing, we talk about having a weekly self-management meeting where you're really having the power of the pause to really look at what your goals are for the week, etc. So it's both for the employee as well as for the entrepreneur.
That's great. And I'm assuming that the book is available at any traditional bookstore like Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
It's on Amazon. Yep.
I like how
Easy
I just
way.
called Amazon a bookstore.
Yes. Great.
So you also have a podcast coming out. Why don't you take a moment and share that with us as well?
Yes, we are so excited. So, our podcast, Hiring and Empowering Solutions, is going to launch on April 20th. And I'm most excited about it because what we're going to do a little bit different approach of we're going to start in interviewing with employees. So, people that maybe started out as the very first employee or just brought in recently, maybe 30, 60, 90 days within their hiring process, or if they're a bigger firm that now have 5, 6, 7 offices, and allow for you to hear from their perspective. What were some of the greatest nuggets that they got to help them to give their attorney confidence to let go of control and maybe to start being able to allow them to manage and to lead the firm, and so the attorney could be freed up to be meeting with existing clients, prospective clients, doing speaking opportunities, marketing, etc. And I love that because when we can get the employees in front of us and really open up and share their process and what some of the greatest aha moments were for them, where they said, wow, I really understand what's coming at my attorney. Because, there's all this stereotypical stuff, or they see the checks that are coming in or the engagement agreements. And most employers are like, oh my gosh, look how much money we're making. I should get a raise. And it's not about that. When they understand what all the work that goes into producing that final product for the client, all the work that goes into and all the overhead that's attached to it, they have such an appreciation when they see that you're in back-to-back appointments without a glass of water, without any food, that you've missed your kid's soccer game for 3 weeks in a row, and they really become your Julie McCoy, if you will, your cruise director. And they begin to, I love when the shift happens where they start to make that. And that's really what I'm most interested in. Talk to us about this shift when you really knew that it was your greatest job was to protect your attorney's time, their confidence, and their calendar, and what occurred for you and how you did that, and then what the impact was on the other side for the attorney, and just how that really was a catalyst and a launch pad for creating $1 million practice.
Wow. Wow, I love it, and I love the other perspective that can be achieved just by listening to those interviews. So I can't wait till it comes out. And for any of my listeners who are who have a staff already or are looking to potentially start to hire their first staff member or their first real hire, that maybe you had somebody answering the phones, but now you're looking to bring on somebody who's going to be doing some more of your work for you. I'm sure there'll be lots of value to be gleaned from hearing from the perspective of an employee so that you can start to put yourself in their shoes and think that way as their employer. So I think it's going to be great. It sounds wonderful, and I can't wait till it comes out. I'm definitely going to be a subscriber myself and take a listen, and just can't wait for that. Now, so how can our listeners get in touch with you or find out more about you if they want to continue beyond this interview?
Yeah, so I always tell people the easiest way is go to our website, hiringandempoweringsolutions.com, and you can join our blog. We've been blogging for 10 years now, 12 years now, and we have so many different great topics on leadership, hiring, firing, all that, and we're constantly sending out blogs. And on our homepage, we also have a downloadable book called the Employee Playbook that you can download there as well, and it really will teach you how to, from a very small perspective of how to immediately be able to make 2 millimeter shifts that we talk about, of getting your employees to step up and lead because they want to, they really do.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. So again, hiringandempoweringsolutions.com is the website, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on that website, you can either get in touch directly or download a free ebook that's available there and start to get started with this process all on your own. And I'm sure that once you give your information over, they will Molly and her team will be in touch with you. Is that correct?
Indeed. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Great. So Molly, this was amazing. And I think that we're going to have you back at some point because there's so much that we could have covered that we, with the short time frame that we have, we couldn't glean all of the knowledge in your database voice and your head there with our short time together. So, but this was, I mean, so many good points, and I can't wait to release this out to the public so everybody can hear it. And I thank you and appreciate your time and willingness to share with our audience.
Indeed. Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.